and welcome to this episode of MFile. Change your music, change your life. It's good to have you back. I've been really enjoying these one-sided conversations that we're having. It's giving me a chance to really rub all of my dirty laundry all over your face and not even have to wait for you to try and add something informative or anything like that. It's really great. It's perfect for my personality and my ego. Yeah, so today's episode is kind of harkening back to a line that really stuck out, I think, from the first episode. I was good enough to fool some people, but I wasn't satisfied. I felt like that really captured a really crucial moment in my growth and progression as a musician and a songwriter and a guitar player. The idea that you hit that point and you're good enough, you could stop. You know, you've reached a point where people give you just enough feedback that's positive. You could stay there, that's comfortable, right? So I kind of want to dig deeper into that idea that maybe push your limits, maybe push beyond. It's not always about like, oh, I gotta impress people, my music has to be for somebody else. Well, okay, if that's true, wouldn't you want to give them the best music possible? Wouldn't you want to give them something maybe they've never heard before, or connect with them in a way that, you know, they've been looking for but haven't been able to find with other music out there? So I felt like this was a really good topic to kind of ramble about for the next little while. Okay, so I mean, as far as like my childhood goes, you know, like I always really wanted to play guitar. I had an embarrassing level of obsession with becoming a guitar player. When I was in grade 6, I started saving up money to try and buy a white Les Paul. Like, I think I saw Dave Grohl play one in the 90s, and I was like, oh my god, this is such a beautiful guitar. It's the exact one that I gotta have it. And like Les Pauls, they're not cheap. And also I was a very skinny kid, so if I would have tried to put it on, it would have taken me right through the floor because it's a solid chunk of wood. But yeah, like at night I would listen to all my favorite albums on headphones. Like, I'm supposed to be asleep, and you know, oh, good night, and turn out the light, and then I'd pop my CDs in and put my headphones in and listen to these albums, and I would, like, it's embarrassing, but I would mime the guitar playing. I would have this whole scenario happening in my head that I was on stage and I was performing. And I would be miming like kind of what I thought the strumming patterns would be, and what like, oh, this, you know, kind of just using visualization in a way to try and pretend like I was actually playing what was on the records. Like, I did this for a couple years. And yeah, it's a little embarrassing, but it's also like, I was just so serious with it, and it consumed me to the point where I was like, if I'm not going to be able to get a guitar, my parents aren't yet convinced that I'm gonna take it seriously enough for them to buy me one, and I'll just pretend I have one and just make it up as I go. So, you know, eventually I did get a guitar. I borrowed one from a friend, and I would kind of, like I said, I sneak my sister's classical guitar, and I'd try and learn things. And eventually my mom bought me like a Squire that was like used, and it had like stickers that she didn't really know had to do with like smoking dope and stuff on them. It was kind of funny. I was like, oh, okay. Like, Anyway, but yeah, I just spent hours every day. I began teaching myself how to play and learning songs. I constantly had a guitar in my hand. Even to the point of like not doing homework. I would come home from school and I would sit in the computer chair, talk to people online, and just always be playing. I think the desire to play guitar was kind of a way of kind of finding my own identity, or at least defining my identity. I'm a guitar player. I'm a musician. You know, I want to make music. I wanted to be known and seen and heard. I think maybe there was a lack of that, or perceived lack of that. So maybe I was like seeking approval from friends, other musicians that I admired, you know, like being able to pick up a guitar after somebody who, you know, was really good in my school at a party and play and do a song and have them be like, yeah, like, you know, you get the endorphins of like an acceptance and like a validation, and it's a good feeling. But I think I was always kind of thought of as like a quiet kid, like in elementary school. Like I was nerdy, and a lot was expected of me in school with my parents and my teachers and everything. And I think I just kind of wanted to create something that was like all mine. It was something that I wanted and not anybody else. So it wasn't, you need to do this, you need to get really good grades in this, you need to go into school for this, and this is what's expected of you. You're the smart kid, you should know better, you shouldn't be hanging with these people, you need to go and do this. And this was a way of like something that I picked up, I chose it, I felt passionate about it, and it was something that could be entirely me. You know, building something from zero and being able to step into that and not have to worry about excuse me. Oh, cat hair attack. It was not having to worry about all of these other expectations that were placed on me and all of these destinations that I was supposed to go to. I would go somewhere that I wanted to go. I think that was probably, you know, whether I knew it or not, that was what was kind of happening. So, you know, after years of playing in high school and everything, and I went to school, and I failed out of college, and I got pretty depressed. Like I stopped going to classes, and, you know, so I had to make that phone call. I went and withdrew from the program, and I called my mom and told her kind of what was happening. You know, she knew stuff wasn't really going very well, but I felt really embarrassed to have to tell her that I was leaving school and to pack up all my stuff after a semester and come home for Christmas. Yeah, I felt pretty lacking in the direction department, to say the least. I really didn't know what I was going to be doing. But I eventually settled on the idea of going to music school. You know, I spent so much time leaving class to go play guitar anyway. So why not just go to school for that? So, you know, I kind of had this moment where I decided that, you know what, I'm going to give myself to my music. I'm going to give myself to my guitar. I'm going to work on my songwriting and just like let this consume me. And I'm going to have this whole year of being stuck at home. You know, I had nothing to do. I had nothing. I had nowhere to go. So making music became this something that I could finally truly build for myself. You know, from those original feelings of like, this is something that I really want to do and I can kind of aspire to be. Now it was like everything I thought I was going to have to do is gone. So music was there, and music was something that I was like, okay, like I can literally build whatever I want. So let's take this time and just do it. So my plan of action, you know, it included lots of studying. brushing up on all my music theory essentials, going through everything that I needed to know to try and pass the entrance exam and the audition. I started researching recording equipment, mics, everything that I would need for like a demo studio in my mom's basement. I saved up some money, and I got myself a Tascam DP01FX, and it's like this big, and it was one of the first like digital Porta Studios. It had its own hard drive on it. And it's pretty clunky and old school now, but I still use it for recordings, which is hilarious. Because it still sounds good. It's not like you look at it and you're like, oh, cranky old piece of junk, but like it's a workhorse. I'm actually impressed at the quality that I can still get off of those recordings and stuff. So I mean, I'm still gonna be using it when I make new music, but I just decided to spend as much time as I could playing, writing, recording, jamming, just trying to hone all of my music skills and make myself a better rounded musician and songwriter. If I could impress a few people, but I didn't feel satisfied with myself, then it was time to, sharpen the saw and really go back and just work on my craft, basically. So yeah, I had like all my stuff lined up on the floor in front of the computer in the corner of the basement, and I worked at a dollar store, and that's how I made money. And I'd go there during the day and I'd stay up all night and just play. So when I first finally got the recording equipment, I was like so excited. Oh my god, it's here. My mom was pissed because she had to pay duty on it because I was at work when it came. But I like ran in and it was like, oh, it was, it was only November, but it was like early Christmas. Like this was the only thing I cared about, finally getting here. So I ripped the box open and I get it out, and okay, I gotta get this and set up the microphones and plug everything in, and okay, here we go. I'm gonna play and it's gonna be amazing. And then I listened to it and it was a bit jarring. I only really recorded a couple times before that. I didn't really have a lot of experience. So my one thing that was a big thing was my time was terrible. If I wasn't playing with other people, it would fluctuate like crazy. So the first tracks, recording a rhythm and then being like, I'm gonna solo for 15 minutes and it's gonna be amazing, and then trying to play over it was nearly impossible because the time is so bad. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to play with somebody who has no concept of time, or if you try this exact same thing where you're just like, I'm just gonna play and I don't need to ever practice with a metronome or play to a click track or anything like that, and you try and go back and record and it's just it doesn't, it's not conducive to an excellent recording session. Let's just say that. So the first couple tracks were kind of garbage. I didn't exactly know what I was doing with all the recording gear. For the most part, it was pretty plug and play. You just put the stuff in and hit record and it's there. But there was a bit of a steep learning curve as well. Like, I didn't know about overloading the signal and like hitting the red and peaking, and then it just distorts everything. Like, why does this keep happening? Like, idiot. You're overloading the microphones and the inputs and it's too loud. So, and then like trying to get the effects, trying to do basic mixing and mastering and stuff. Like, there was just so much to learn, and I didn't know where to start or what to do. And so that was like incredibly overwhelming, and I just wanted to write music and make it happen, but like, I didn't know what I was doing. So also, I mean, this is like nighttime, but daytime I had to go to work at a dollar store. Everybody has those like job stories that they have when they're younger, and it's like, yeah, I just had this part-time job to try and make ends meet and make some money and everything, but like, this dollar store was around the corner from my mom's house, so like I would go to work in the morning, and it was so draining. Like, as I'm sure anybody who's worked in any kind of retail can attest to, it is a difficult job being in customer service. Just daily being berated by customers, like people just expecting that you're just some kind of servant and treating you like complete garbage. That takes a lot out of you, and it's hard not to like clap back at them, like, frig off, lady. Like, people complaining about prices for things, and it's $1. And then on top of that, there's like weird stuff. Like, we caught some like 9-year-old kids shoplifting hairspray and lighters, and we found them. They ran away, and we found them in the back trying to light the dumpster on fire. So they got arrested. Like, that's a weird day. There was this dude who looked like he was wearing a permanent Groucho Marx mask, like the big bushy eyebrows and the glasses and like huge nose and like mustache. He was like a pervy guy that you used to see down at the beach, and he'd be, oh, I got my binoculars here, I'm totally watching the boats. Like, you're not watching the boats. So a few times, yeah, we caught him like stealing women's underwear from the clothing department. It's hard to deal with that kind of stuff on a daily basis, especially when you don't want to be there, especially when like, I have this far to go until I can try and do something that I actually want to, but I'm stuck here, and all for minimum wage. So you get through a long week, like around Christmas time, it would just be crazy. You get that paycheck and you're like, oh yeah, here we go, where's all my money? It was really tough. All I wanted to do was just stay home and play music. Like, I didn't care about anything else. But I had to go to work. I had this job. I gotta try and pay off student loan stuff from my failed excursion and save money for my next trip to school. But even still, going to work just felt so useless. Like, getting treated with no respect, having to listen to light FM radio all day. Like, I don't know. There's only so much like Celine Dion and Katy Perry and Lady Gaga and Michael Bublé type stuff that you can take in a single day. There's certain songs that I hear to this day, and it makes me want to just like rip my ears off, stuff them down my throat, and just choke myself to death. Yeah. So at one point around Christmas time, like in December, I actually came down with mono. Working in a retail outlet like dollar store like that, you're gonna get into contact with all kinds of filthy things. So I won the disease lottery, and I got mono. I got incredibly sick for a few months. Like, my liver was swollen, and I was having respiratory problems, pneumonia. I think I was coughing so hard that I actually kind of cracked a rib at one point. And so on top of like all this other stuff, I found myself feeling really lonely. I had no problem with the idea of staying home and playing music all the time, but then that's all I'm doing is I go to work at the dollar store and get yelled at and stop kids from lighting dumpsters on fire and stop creepy old men from stealing ladies' underwear. And then I come home and I try to play music, and I just kind of feel like something's missing. I'm not really living my life exactly. I had moved back home, but all of my friends were gone. Everyone else was in college and university, and they were doing what you're supposed to do. I was supposed to be out in college and learning and being that next step onto becoming an adult, and I kicked it away, and I didn't enjoy it, and I came home and I felt like I washed out, felt like I was a disappointment. And it was tough, because having to come home would have been a lot easier if there was a bigger support system there, but everybody that I knew was off doing what you were supposed to be doing. So I felt like a bit of a disappointment. Everybody seemed to have a lot of expectations, and I definitely did not appear to be meeting them at first glance there. So, you know, I guess it kind of helped, because while it was a very lonely, there wasn't a lot of distraction. So it ended up being like an incredibly productive period. Prolific is a proper word. I wrote like hundreds of songs. I have them all backed up on a hard drive. So, I mean, that's something that can be taken from it. That was like 15 years ago that I was working on some of this stuff. And, you know, a couple months ago, I was going through, I found the old files and was listening to some of it and was like, I like this. Like, this isn't garbage. You know, this is something that I can take and turn into something new with everything that I've learned. So that's really exciting. I kind of want to make that a part of the process of writing more music, and just going back and seeing how I can make this old stuff evolve. But the more that I wrote, the more that I got better at it. And the more I was able to experiment with ideas and take concepts and take feelings and turn it upside down or try and combine things. And it was just like a super important time of just doing it. You know, I felt like, I don't know, I felt like not doing it a lot of time. You know, I just like, you gotta fight past that. Like, finding motivation to do it is bullshit. Some days you are not gonna feel like picking up your instrument, but you do it anyway. You have to. You're not always going to be inspired. You can't always wait around to just have a magic fairy show up and sprinkle some inspiration on you, and then you suddenly write a masterpiece. That's bullshit. You have to keep going. The more you write, the better you will get. The more you practice, the more adept you will be on your instrument, the more it will be able to speak for you. Okay? So these endless hours of playing that I spent, it tightened all my skills. It made me far more competent and confident as a player, as a musician. And by making creativity a habit, it strengthens the flow. If you're doing it every day, some days it's not going to be good. Some days it's going to be really good. But there's a good chance that you were feeling really good on the day it wasn't that great, and you were feeling really crappy on the day it ended up being good. You don't know what the results are going to be. You just have to get the results. That's the biggest thing. Okay? Make creativity a habit to strengthen the flow. So yeah, endless hours of just writing and jamming and creating and improvising, fearless experimenting. You know, it made me a far more desirable musician to play with. By the time I finally got to music school, like, I was still really rough around the edges, like big time, but like, well, by more refined standards. But by the time I got to music school, I managed to make a name for myself pretty quickly because people wanted to play with me. I was somebody that was coming in and writing music and had a bunch of music that I could write. And I was really good at coming up with stuff on the spot. And it wasn't just scales. It was actually like melody. It was actually harmony, chords, movement, creating something. People used to say that playing with me was like playing with a drummer. You know, and that was because I listened back to myself and realized that my time was, sometimes it was terrible. So I really tried to work on that and be more solid and more conscious of the flow and the groove and and staying on top of it, because you know, I wasn't using a metronome. Obviously I should have been. I didn't start until I got to music school because I was like, oh, whatever. But trying to focus on building more solid time even without it, it really made a difference. So being able to get into that pocket and really groove, like, you know, your drummer will thank you. Like big time. The drummers really liked playing with me. I actually had a lot of really good experiences of just doing duo, just guitar and drums, because they would ask. It would be like, let's go to the jam portable and let's play and just improvise. And it was so much fun going back and forth because you know, it was people considering the whole and not just what their instrument can do. So yeah, I had a really great time, and that experience, that whole time, it sucked. Like, I didn't want to have to work at a dollar store. I didn't want to have to move back home when I'm supposed to be in school, and I didn't want to have to work for minimum wage and be angsty in my mom's basement. But it was what I chose to do outside of that. Like, here's all these things, but this is what is happening. There's none of that stuff I could control. So that's okay. We put that aside. What can I control? Well, I want to build something for myself with music. Okay, so let's practice every day. Let's write, let's jam, let's record. Let's take this as seriously as if it was a job and I was getting paid for it. Except it was bigger than that. It wasn't just a paycheck. It was just like, I need to do this. I wanted to build something for myself with music, but I ended up building myself through music. I became something else. I became a more well-rounded, thoughtful, creative person by making myself part of the music. I built myself through this experience. So going to school, all these people that I met, all this music that I made, all these opportunities that I got was because I took the music and made it a part of me, and then made myself a part of the music. Like, it was intertwined, and it changed everything. You know, so it was, and even now, you know, I'm not satisfied with where I am as a musician. But the thing is, you never should be. And you always need to keep pushing. If you feel like you're getting comfortable with where you are, then you're not challenging yourself enough. And you know, how many times before you may have had that point where you're like, I was good enough, but I wasn't satisfied. Like, should you have stopped there? What about all that stuff that you learned? What about all these things that changed? What about all this music that you were able to write that you never thought you'd be able to make anything like that before? Okay, so you always need to keep pushing. You always need to progress. Learning new stuff. Trying to wrestle with a new concept. Take an idea and write a song around it and try and make it work for you. That's the biggest chunk of advice that you should try and take away from this. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about that story today. All right. So that handles that portion. The album of today is a smoking one. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Raise, 1981. So, I mean, everybody's heard September, right? We all know that song. That is not on this record, by the way. This is just such a powerhouse record. It goes full blast. Even the ballads on this record are just so in your face. Like, I feel like it doesn't slow down, but it doesn't give you fatigue. That's a really important thing. You know, there's a reason why punk rock songs are only like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's because if you do that for 20 minutes, it loses the edge. Your ears get tired. Like, you can't just go all the time. You can't be peak limiting all the time, despite what popular music seems to think in the music studio. So this is, I mean, if you don't know anything about Earth, Wind, and Fire, they're like a massive full band. They don't have a picture on the inside, but they always have lots of cool artwork on their stuff, and like lots of Egypt themed everything. But so these guys, like, it's probably like a 14-piece band. I don't know, full horn section. Everybody sings. There's crazy vocal harmonies, and everyone's just like super, super, super talented. And it's just this incredible experience listening to this album from start to finish. Like, there's no weak song on it. Every single one just hits you in the exact right way. I feel like it's just this perfect thematic tying together. There's a very clear idea of what the sound is, and what they want to get across. Like, it's like they really came into their own and just owned it. And there wasn't like, oh, we got to try this, or let's give it a little this. And it was just like, it was full force Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's that kind of thing where they finally became their own genre. Like, it's like power funk, but it's Earth, Wind, and Fire. When you hear it, you know it's them. And it's such an incredible album. Raise is the title. If you don't know it, I highly suggest you go and check it out. The biggest thing about this whole segment where we go through my vinyl pickings, not everyone is gonna like everything personally, and that's okay. The biggest thing is that I want to expose you to music that maybe you would have missed and you wouldn't be thinking about listening to. If you're somebody who, again, is like only into punk rock and you only listen to this, or you only listen to electric, techno music and shit, and then you pop this on and maybe it opens something up, maybe it triggers something in you and you hear something that you were like, I didn't think I was gonna like this, but it's got me thinking about music in a different way. So, I mean, I've had that countless times with all kinds of music and songs and things, and then it's about learning how the music works so you can take this stuff apart and try and apply it in a brand new way. That's how we move forward as a whole in music. We take the good that's come before and we find new crazy ways to combine it and make something awesome. And this is just such a huge example of that. It's so many things. And so that's it for this episode today. Thanks so much for joining. Be sure to check out all the links below and follow us on, the Fachi books and the Twitters and whatever. Wherever you can find us, there'll be all kinds of stuff that we want to try and give to you. So please, if you think somebody might want to listen to this or see something or learn something, just tell them MFile is the place to be. We want to build a really good community of people who are learning and want to change and want to progress. So if that sounds like you or someone you know, MFile. That was Change Your Music, Change Your Life, episode 3. Peace, guys.